Have you ever wanted to look into retro games but aren't sure where to begin? Do you ever wonder which classic games stand the test of time and which ones don't hold up? These are some questions that have been bothering me for a while now, and I think it's about time to do something about it. So I'm going through gaming's history one game at a time to find the best games of all time. Welcome to the Gaming Archaeologist. Looking back, I may have been a bit harsh toward Harmony of Dissonance, but I still think it's one of the weakest Castlevania games I've played, and that was only further reinforced after going through Castlevania Aria of Sorrow. While Harmony of Dissonance may have tried to be more like Symphony of the Night, Aria of Sorrow is the GBA Castlevania that comes closest to matching Symphony of the Night in terms of overall quality. Like its predecessors, Aria of Sorrow is a Metroidvania where you explore Dracula's castle, but there are several things that make this game stand out. First of all, the story is actually fresh and different. You don't play as a member of the Belmont clan, and the game actually takes place in the future. The game reveals that in 1999, Dracula was defeated for a final time, and his cycle of revival was permanently halted, and the symbol of his power, his castle, was sealed inside of an eclipse. But now, in 2035, the castle has reappeared, reawakened by another eclipse. A shrine in Japan ends up being caught up in the eclipse, and everyone at the shrine finds themselves transported into Dracula's castle. One of these people is Soma Cruz, a foreign exchange student who suddenly finds a dark power awakening within him as he enters the castle. He learns that while Dracula is gone, someone else is prophesied to inherit his powers and continue his reign of terror. So you must explore the castle, encounter various characters along the way, and find out who is the new Dracula, and solve the mysteries behind the castle's power. The game definitely places a bigger focus on the gameplay and exploration rather than on the story, but at least the game's narrative is unique and offers something different. It isn't just the usual Dracula revives, Belmont clan member has to stop him setup. The only real criticism I have of the story is that the ending is a little anticlimactic. Both of them, I might add. Even so, the story is still pretty good despite the lackluster endings. Another change is the new tactical soul system. How it works is that every time you defeat a monster, there's a small chance that you will absorb its soul. Absorbing a monster's soul gives you new powers and abilities, and the randomness of when you get new souls adds a fair amount of replayability to the game, as well as different strategies and playstyles. Another thing I like is that the game has a shop at the entrance to the castle, which allows you to stock up on healing items and also sell weapons and items you no longer need. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense from a story and character perspective, but from a mechanics perspective, it makes perfect sense. In terms of the castle, the game looks gorgeous, with amazing backgrounds and excellent sprite work for the different enemies. The game is well paced, well directed, each area is distinct and memorable, and there's always a new secret lying just around the corner. The game also does a good job of making you feel more powerful the further into the game you get. You start off fairly weak, but by the end you really feel like a powerhouse, and going back to enemies that once gave you trouble and decimating them is thrilling, as well as satisfying. And exploring the castle for all the secrets, or just for the heck of it, is constantly engaging and fun. And the music's pretty good too, although there are a couple of tracks that are a little less memorable than the others. The game excels in so many areas, but I should go over its flaws. As good as the tactical soul system is, it does have some shortcomings. Not only are there a lot of souls that you won't end up using, but it's also possible to get duplicates of the same soul, and unlike with the normal items, there's no system that allows you to get any use out of the souls you don't need. Also, there are some souls that should have just become an automatic ability once you get them, rather than having to equip them. The two biggest offenders are the souls that let you walk on water and walk underwater. You can't have both of them equipped at the same time, so when you're in an area with a lot of water, you have to constantly switch back and forth. They should have learned that this is a bad idea after Ocarina of Time did it with the Water Temple, and it just adds unnecessary tedium to the game. Another problem is the sheer number of items in the game. In Circle of the Moon and Harmony of Dissonance, you just had a whip, and that was it, nice and straightforward. But here, you're constantly getting new weapons, and so you have to constantly switch out for the best one. And sometimes the weapon you like the best becomes too weak to be useful, and there's no alternative aside from just switching to a more powerful but less fun weapon. Also, there's often little to no correlation between how hard an item is to find and how useful or powerful it is. For instance, the handgun is fairly hard to get your hands on, but once you do get it, it's really not powerful enough to be useful. It's cool, and it's effective enough against the weaker enemies, but it would be nice if all the items you have to work hard to get were a proper reward for your efforts, rather than just a trinket. I'm not sure what the exact solution should have been, but the game's economy, item system, and soul system could have used a bit of tweaking. The game on the whole is still good, but it's not quite as balanced and refined as it could have been. This is also reflected in the game's difficulty, which is not very high. In Circle of the Moon, the gameplay was quite challenging, but if you died, it was because you weren't cautious or skilled enough. Meanwhile, Aria of Sorrow is pretty easy, And the handful of times where you do die, it's not because of a mistake on your part, but because the boss or enemies had better numbers than you, which is a little annoying. But while the game does have its faults, overall it does do a lot right. It's fun, it's memorable, and I have to say I think it's become my favorite Castlevania game. The handful of flaws are annoying, but I can still appreciate the game for everything it does so well. If you're a fan of Castlevania, this is a game you need to play if you haven't already. My final score is a 9 out of 10. I always bring up the flaws when it comes to games I like because I can see how good they are and I just wish they were even better. So what do you think? Which is your favorite Castlevania game? Whatever you think, be sure to let me know in the comments below. If you like what I do, feel free to subscribe and follow me on Twitter. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.